It is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026, and the weather map across the United States is about to become one of the most complicated and dangerous setups of the entire year so far. Not in one place, not in two places, everywhere at once. Severe thunderstorms capable of dropping hail larger than golf balls are loading up across the high plains and upper Midwest starting tomorrow. A dangerous overnight windstorm is building behind those storms, with the potential to blast 60-plus mile-per-hour winds through communities from the Black Hills to southwest Minnesota, while people are asleep. South Florida is being swamped by a stalled front that is dumping 2 to 3 inches of rain per hour on an already saturated Miami metro. The East Coast is about to dial up to dangerous heat levels this weekend, with overnight lows staying in the 70s, meaning your body never gets to cool off. Montana and western North Dakota are flagged for a rare early June severe weather outbreak on Saturday. The tropics are waking up with tropical depression, 1E already formed in the eastern Pacific, and another area of low pressure developing off Central America with a 50% chance of organizing over the next 7 days. And if all of that is not enough, massive X-class solar flares have been firing, and a geomagnetic storm Thursday into Friday could push the northern lights significantly further south than anyone expects. This is not one weather story. This is every weather story happening at the same time. Let us get into all of it. The most urgent and immediate threat is what is building across the northern plains right now for tomorrow, Thursday, June 4th. A wave of energy is dropping down into the northern plains, and it is going to slam into warm, humid air riding up the terrain with a cold front shoving in behind it. The atmosphere across this region is going to be loaded with storm energy right as that front crashes into the warm, moist air, and the combination is going to produce a significant severe weather event. The Storm Prediction Center has issued a slight risk of severe weather stretching across a huge corridor covering northeast Wyoming, western South Dakota, western Nebraska, all the way down into southwest Minnesota. If you live in Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Gillette, or Watertown, you are sitting right in the bullseye of the worst of these storms. Omaha and Minneapolis, you are in the marginal risk zone. You might catch a weaker storm, but the most dangerous activity should hold off to your west and north for the most part. Early on Thursday afternoon, before these storms merge, you can actually expect to see individual supercells dropping hail bigger than 2 inches in diameter. That is an egg size, bigger than golf balls. That is easily enough to smash through a windshield and cause serious damage to anything left outside. There is a small tornado risk as well, particularly later in the day once low-level wind shear starts setting up and that low-level river of warm, moist air lines up properly. Once the sun goes down, these storms are expected to merge into one large cluster and blast east with 60-plus mile-per-hour winds. These are the kinds of winds that knock trees onto power lines and leave entire communities without electricity. If you are going to be on Interstate 90 in South Dakota tomorrow, you need to be ready for zero visibility and torrential rain. Pull over safely if you encounter that wall of water and do not park under overpasses. The only piece still up for grabs right now is exactly where that overnight wind cluster is going to track. Anywhere from the Black Hills to southwest Minnesota, your Thursday night needs a plan. Know where you will take shelter if a warning drops while you are sleeping, because that is a very real possibility with this system. The flooding threat is the second major concern for tomorrow, and it is serious in 2 completely different parts of the country simultaneously. Across the northern plains, the same cold front that is driving the severe weather is going to tap into a river of warm, humid air, allowing that line of storms to train over the same spots in southwest Minnesota, Iowa, and eastern South Dakota. Rain is going to come down so fast that roads, culverts, and drainage systems simply cannot keep up. Rural backroads and low-lying intersections are probably going to go underwater on Thursday. If you have plans that involve driving through these areas tomorrow morning, you need to check conditions before you leave and turn around if you encounter any water across a road. Down in South Florida, the flooding situation is a completely separate problem that has been building for days. That stalled front is still parked over the Florida peninsula, and it is not going anywhere fast. Downpours are dumping 2 to 3 inches of rain per hour over the Miami metro on already saturated ground. Local totals are pushing 3 to 5 inches, and flooded streets, stalled cars, and closed roads are the expected result. If you live in a flood-prone area near Miami, you need to be ready to get to higher ground. This is not an exaggeration. The intensity of rainfall hitting already saturated soil in this area is producing conditions where street flooding can become severe enough to strand vehicles and make roads impassable within minutes of a heavy band moving through. By Friday, the entire storm machine picks up and slides east into the upper Midwest. A slight risk for severe storms has been issued running from central and eastern Nebraska into Iowa, southern Minnesota, and even western portions of Wisconsin. The threat has actually nudged a little further north. Compared to earlier forecasts, and confidence is growing that a concentrated corridor of severe weather is going to set up across Omaha, Lincoln, Rochester, Sioux City, and Council Bluffs. These are the cities being watched most closely for the worst of it on Friday. Kansas City and Milwaukee, you are in the game, but on the edge, and will likely dodge the absolute worst of it, though staying alert is still important. If you are headed to Wrigley Field for the Cubs game on Friday afternoon, keep half an eye on the radar. There might be some storms around Friday morning, but the real severe threat is going to crank up mid to late afternoon. What is driving Friday's threat is a wave of energy strengthening as it rolls into the upper Mississippi Valley, dragging that cold front from the north into even more warm and unstable air than it encountered on Thursday. Winds are going to be changing from 30 to 40 knots from the surface upward, and storms are going to organize fast, bringing large hail and potentially strong winds. There is also a conditional shot at a couple of tornadoes on Friday, particularly as low-level winds start to ramp up in the afternoon. The tornado potential on Friday is actually slightly better than Thursday's. If you have outdoor plans anywhere in Iowa or southern Minnesota on Friday, you need to be watching the radar closely and having a shelter plan ready before you need it. There is also a marginal flash flood risk stretching from the upper Midwest, all the way down into Texas and toward the Gulf Coast, where rain rates could overwhelm drainage systems. While all of this severe weather chaos is unfolding across the Midwest, the western half of the country is hitting the weather jackpot. Dry, stable air is locking in absolutely perfect conditions across the Central Rockies and into the Intermountain West. Medford, Oregon, Mount Shasta, California, and the surrounding regions are looking at 0% rain chances, crystal clear skies, and beautiful highs around 76 to 80 degrees. Dew points are going to drop into the crisp low 40s, making the air feel genuinely flawless the moment you step outside. Winds are staying light, making Friday afternoon the ideal window for hiking, patio dining, or simply throwing the windows open and letting fresh air fill the house. The UV index is going to be around 8, so sun protection matters, but otherwise, the western half of the country is being handed a gift of a weather day, while the Midwest fights for its life against severe storms. By the time the weekend arrives, the map gets complicated from coast to coast in a completely different way. Saturday brings a day 4 severe weather threat area that has already been flagged for Montana's and western North Dakota. A day 4 severe weather flag in early June for this region is genuinely rare and noteworthy. It is looking increasingly likely that another deepening low and another cold front are going to team up with strong instability and strengthening wind shear to fire organized severe storms across the northern high plains, Saturday afternoon and evening. This is the kind of pattern that keeps repeating this week, and it is not finished. Out east, this weekend, high pressure is building aloft and pumping warm southerly air into the eastern United States. The heat risk scale along the mid-Atlantic coast is dialing up to a level 2 and 3 out of 4. If you are headed to the Governor's Ball in Queens or the Belmont Stakes up in Saratoga Springs, this weekend you are walking straight into dangerous heat. The critical detail here is that overnight lows on Friday and Saturday are only going to drop into the 70s. That means your body never gets to cool off overnight the way it needs to recover from daytime heat stress. Coming out of some relatively cooler nights recently, this heat is going to hit harder than the numbers alone suggest, and it can be dangerous for vulnerable people, including the elderly, young children, and anyone with underlying health conditions. Hydration and access to air conditioning are not optional this weekend in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. The Pacific Northwest is going to see rain and gusty winds this weekend, while the Great Lakes deal with some scattered storms along a cold front. Nothing dramatic, but worth noting for anyone with outdoor plans in those regions. Along the East Coast, isolated storms will also pop up even amid the heat, and if you are flying into Newark or anywhere along the East Coast this weekend, be prepared for possible weather delays. Looking ahead to next week, the pattern stays busy and actually intensifies in some respects. Severe weather is expected to return to the northern and central high plains by Tuesday or Wednesday as a new western system shoves stronger winds aloft into the region. This pattern has been repeating, and it shows no sign of stopping. Looking all the way out to 8 to 14 days, a slight risk of extreme heat is being tracked from the northern and central plains into the Great Lakes region. Unseasonable warmth combined with a lack of rainfall is working toward developing and potentially worsening drought across parts of the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. The areas that desperately need rain right now are not going to get meaningful relief in the near term, and that drought situation is something that will need to be watched closely as we move deeper into June. The tropics deserve specific attention because the season is officially waking up. Tropical Depression 1E has already formed in the eastern Pacific and is expected to peak as a strong tropical storm near 65-mile-per-hour winds before heading northwest away from land. There are no coastal concerns from this system, but its formation marks the opening of what could be a busy tropical season. A second and more closely watched area of low pressure is developing off Central America and southern Mexico, with a 50% chance of developing over the next 7 days. This is the one to watch because of its proximity to land and the Gulf of Mexico. Details on this will be updated as development becomes clearer. Finally, the solar activity angle is something most weather watchers are not thinking about right now, but should be. Massive X-class solar flares have been firing recently, and a geomagnetic storm is expected to arrive Thursday into Friday. The significance here is that this geomagnetic storm could push the aurora borealis, the northern lights, significantly further south than people in the continental United States are used to seeing them. If you are in the northern tier of the country and you have clear skies Thursday or Friday night, it is worth looking north after dark. Given that Thursday night will also be the same night that severe storms are potentially producing damaging winds across the northern plains, the viewing conditions for any given location will depend entirely on where the storm cluster tracks. Check your local radar before heading outside to look for the lights. Everything is happening at once. Thursday brings severe hail, overnight winds, and flooding across the plains while Miami drowns. Friday brings another round of organized severe weather pushing into the Midwest with tornadoes possible. Saturday brings rare early June severe storms to Montana and dangerous heat to the mid-Atlantic. Next week brings more severe weather, more heat, drought concerns, and the tropics fully waking up. Have your shelter plan ready, know your local warnings, watch the radar, and stay weather aware around the clock because this pattern is not finished and it is absolutely reloading.